The Blue Moon Diner reeked of burnt coffee and desperation at 2 a.m. Olivia wiped down the same sticky table for the third time, her fingertips pruned from bleach water, her feet screaming inside worn sneakers held together with duct tape. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even the youngest customers look half dead. 28 years old and she felt 50. "Olivia, table 6 needs ketchup," Marlene barked from behind the counter, her cigarette-roughened voice cutting through the late-night silence. She didn't look up from her magazine, some gossip rag about celebrities Olivia could never afford to care about. "On it," she mumbled, grabbing the plastic bottle from the condiment station. Table 6 was a young mother with hollow eyes and a little boy who couldn't have been more than 6. The kid was drawing on the paper placemat with a stubby crayon, his tongue poking out in concentration. The woman, Maya, kept staring out the window at the empty parking lot like she was searching for someone. Her hands trembled when she reached for her coffee. Olivia had seen that look before, in her own mirror, back when Derek used to come home with liquor on his breath and rage in his fists, back when she'd count the tiles on the bathroom floor and wonder if this would be the night he finally went too far. "Here's your ketchup," Olivia said softly, setting it down. "Can I get you anything else? Maybe some pie. It's on the house." The boy's eyes lit up. "Can we, Mama?" Maya shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't accept." "I insist," Olivia interrupted gently. "Cherry or apple?" "Cherry!" Ethan squealed, then immediately looked guilty, like he'd been taught that joy was something to apologize for. Olivia smiled at him. "Cherry it is, sweetheart." She was heading back to the kitchen when the bell above the door chimed. The sound seemed to suck all the air out of the room. 3 men walked in, and everything about them screamed danger. The first 2 were massive, their shoulders barely fitting through the doorframe. They wore dark suits that probably cost more than 6 months of Olivia's salary, and their eyes scanned the diner with the cold efficiency of predators. But it was the third man who made her breath catch. He moved like liquid darkness, each step deliberate and measured. His suit was black, not the cheap black of a funeral rental, but the kind of black that absorbed light, even from across the room. Olivia could smell him. Expensive cologne mixed with something darker, danger, or maybe power. He had a face that belonged in old paintings, sharp jawline, dark hair slightly curled and swept back, a faint scar above his left eyebrow, and eyes the color of storm clouds that seemed to catalog everything in a single glance. When those eyes landed on Olivia, she felt pinned like a butterfly under glass. Then they moved past her to table 6. Maya went rigid. Her coffee cup clattered against the saucer. Her face turned white as death. "No," she breathed. "No, no, no, Maya." The dark-haired man's voice was velvet wrapped around steel. He didn't raise it. Didn't need to. The single word carried more threat than a scream. "You've been avoiding my calls. Please," she whispered. "Please, I just need more time." "Time?" He moved closer, and Olivia noticed how everyone else in the diner suddenly found their plates fascinating. No one dared to look. No one dared to breathe too loudly. "Your boyfriend stole from me, $500,000. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" Ethan had stopped drawing. His crayon hovered over the placemat, his small body frozen in fear. His big round eyes glistened with tears. "I didn't know," Maya said, tears streaming down her face. "I swear I didn't know what Marcus was doing. Ignorance isn't innocence." The man gestured, and one of his companions stepped forward. "You'll come with us. We'll discuss repayment terms." "No." Maya stood abruptly, positioning herself between the men and her son. Her thin body trembled but didn't retreat. "Please, not in front of Ethan. He's just a baby." "Then you should have thought about that before you chose a thief." Olivia's body moved before her brain caught up. She stepped between them and the table, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Her legs shook like they wanted to buckle, but she stood there anyway, blocking the path between the Mafia Boss and the terrified mother and child. She said no. The silence that followed was deafening. Up close, the man was even more terrifying. He towered over her by nearly 8 inches, his broad shoulders blocking the light behind him. His gray eyes looked down at her with an expression of utter disbelief, as if she'd just sprouted a second head. "Excuse me?" His voice was dangerously soft. I said. Olivia's voice cracked. She took a breath, forced steel into it. She said no. "So you need to leave." One of his companions laughed, a sound like gravel in a garbage disposal. "Boss, you want me to?" The dark-haired man raised one hand, and the laughter died instantly. He studied Olivia with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Do you have any idea who I am? I know you're scaring a child." Olivia gestured to Ethan, who was now crying silently, tears running down his round cheeks. "So whatever business you have, take it outside." "Olivia, don't." Maya grabbed her arm, her fingers digging in desperately. "Don't. They'll kill you." "The girl is smart," the man said, his eyes never leaving Olivia. "You should listen to her." "Or what?" The words tumbled out before Olivia could stop them. "You'll shoot me in front of witnesses? In front of a kid?" Something flickered in his eyes. "Surprise, maybe. Or interest." "No," he said slowly. "I wouldn't waste a bullet on someone so insignificant." The words should have stung. Instead, they made Olivia angry. "Then leave them alone. She's not responsible for what her boyfriend did. She benefited from it. That makes her complicit. She's a victim. She's a loose end." They stared at each other. Olivia could feel the weight of his power pressing down on her like a physical thing. This was a man who was used to being obeyed, who probably hadn't heard the word no in years. She should have backed down, should have apologized and returned to wiping tables, pretending she hadn't seen anything, but she'd spent too many years making herself small. "Well, she's under my protection now," Olivia said, lifting her chin. "So if you want her, you'll have to go through me." The man's eyebrow lifted fractionally. "Your protection? That's right. And who exactly are you? Someone who's not afraid of you." It was a lie, of course. Olivia was absolutely terrified. Her legs felt like water, and her hands were shaking so badly she had to clasp them behind her back. But he didn't need to know that. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then, incredibly, his lips curved into something that might have been a smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Brave," he murmured. "Or incredibly stupid. Probably both." He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. "What's your name? Why do you care?" "Because I like to know the names of people who interest me. I'm not interested in interesting you." Too late. The air between them crackled with tension. Behind her, Olivia could hear Maya's ragged breathing, Ethan's muffled sobs. Marlene had disappeared into the kitchen, probably calling the cops, though Olivia doubted they'd arrive in time to matter. "Last chance," the man said. "Step aside." "No," he sighed. And for the first time since he'd walked in, Olivia saw something like regret cross his features. "You really should have." The front door exploded inward. Glass rained down like deadly confetti as 4 men in masks burst in, guns drawn. Olivia heard Marlene scream from the kitchen, heard Maya shriek and grab Ethan, but mostly she heard the gunshot. It happened in slow motion and at lightning speed simultaneously. She saw the masked man's finger squeeze the trigger, saw the muzzle flash, saw the bullet heading straight for Ethan's small head as Maya tried to shield him. Olivia didn't think. She just moved. Her body slammed into Ethan and Maya, taking them both down to the floor. She felt the impact of the bullet like a sledgehammer to her shoulder, felt the burn that spread through her entire arm and chest. The diner tilted sideways and suddenly she was on the ground, the linoleum cold against her cheek. More gunshots, screaming, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Then silence. Olivia tried to breathe, but her lungs wouldn't cooperate. Something warm and wet was spreading across her chest, soaking into her uniform. Her vision blurred, darkened at the edges. Someone grabbed her face, tilting it up. Storm gray eyes filled her vision. "Stay with me," the dark-haired man commanded. His voice seemed to come from very far away. "Do you hear me? Stay with me." Olivia tried to answer, but blood bubbled past her lips instead of words. "Get the car," he barked to someone. "Now." Strong arms lifted her, cradling her against a chest that smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder. She felt movement, heard the crunch of glass under shoes. "Why?" she heard him mutter, and she wasn't sure if he was talking to her or himself. "Why would you do that?" "Because someone had to," Olivia wanted to say. "Because I was tired of being powerless." But the darkness was pulling her down and she couldn't fight it anymore. The last thing she heard was his voice, rough with something that might have been fear. "You don't get to die. Do you understand me? You don't get to die." Then nothing. Will Olivia survive? And who is this mysterious man really? The story has only just begun. If your heart is beating a little faster right now, leave a like so I know you're here. Share this video with someone who needs a story that touches the soul. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss what happens next. Olivia woke up drowning. That was the first sensation she could name. Her lungs were burning. Her throat was closing, and something heavy was pressing down on her chest, making it impossible to draw even one full breath. She tried to thrash, tried to break the surface of the invisible water that was swallowing her, but her body would not obey. Her arms and legs were leaden, foreign, as if they belonged to someone else. A steady beeping sounded from somewhere, cold, measured, mixed with the low hum of machines and the chaos of voices she could not understand. "She is in shock," someone said, urgent and distant, as if the words were echoing from the end of a tunnel. "Call the doctor. Right now." Olivia tried to open her eyes, but her eyelids were so heavy it felt like stones had been placed on them. She tried to speak, but her throat was dry and raw, and something blocked it. Hard, cold, it made her gag. Panic rose like a tidal wave. She fought harder, survival screaming through every cell. She did not know where she was. She did not know what had happened. She only knew she could not breathe, and she was about to die. Hands held her down. Strong, but not brutal. "Miss Bennett, you need to stay calm." A woman's voice, warm and professional. "You are safe. Can you hear me? You are safe. Safe." The word meant nothing. Nothing was safe. Memory slammed into her like shattered glass. Sharp, chaotic. The diner, sallow fluorescent light. Maya and Ethan, a man with storm-gray eyes. The bell over the door. Men in masks. Gunfire. Ethan. She had seen the bullet aimed at the boy. She had thrown herself forward. And then, pain. Pain so deep she thought she would break into a million pieces. Her chest, her shoulder, blood, hot and wet, soaking through her uniform, the cold floor against her cheek, and those gray eyes, the eyes of the terrifying man, suddenly filled with something she could not name. "You cannot die." His voice rang inside her memory, rough and almost desperate. "You are not allowed to die." Olivia stopped struggling, not because she was calm, because she had no strength left. Her body was wrecked. Every muscle ached. Every breath was a battle. The beeping slowed. Steadier now. The hands on her shoulders loosened. "Good." The woman's voice softened. "Just like that. Breathe slowly. You are doing very well." But Olivia did not feel like she was doing well. She felt herself sinking, slowly, unstoppably, down into a bottomless pit. She wanted to ask, was Ethan all right? Was Maya all right? But language had left her. All that remained was darkness, thick, total, pulling her under again. And this time, Olivia did not fight it. She let it swallow her, taking the pain, the fear, and the unanswered question about the man with storm eyes, the man who had carried her in his arms and ordered her to live. The second time Olivia opened her eyes, she thought she was dreaming. The ceiling above her was not the kind of hospital ceiling she expected. Not cold white, not cheap plastic tiles, not harsh fluorescent lights. Instead, it was a work of art, fine gold lines curling in elegant detail, classical motifs, carefully hand-painted, and in the center, a massive crystal chandelier, thousands of tiny prisms catching the light and scattering it into faint rainbows across the cream-colored walls. Olivia blinked once, twice. The ceiling was still there, dazzling and unfamiliar in a way that made no sense. She tried to sit up and regretted it instantly. Pain tore from her left shoulder down across her chest, so fierce she almost screamed. A groan escaped instead, and she collapsed back into the pillow, gasping. "Slowly, sweetheart. Do not try to move too fast." The voice came from her right. Olivia turned her head, slower this time, and saw a middle-aged woman sitting in an armchair beside the bed. Her red hair, threaded with silver, was pinned neatly at the nape of her neck. Her green eyes were warm, and her smile belonged to someone who had seen too much in life, and still chose kindness anyway. She wore a light blue nurse's uniform, but she did not look like she belonged to any public hospital. "My name is Margaret, but everyone calls me Maggie." She stood and placed a cool hand on Olivia's forehead. "Your fever is down. Good. You had us worried these past days." Days. Olivia tried to swallow, but her throat felt like desert sand. Maggie seemed to understand at once. She reached for the glass on the table and brought the straw to Olivia's lips. Olivia took small sips. The cool water soothed the burning in her throat. "Days?" Olivia asked, her voice rough. 3 days, sweetheart. You were in a coma for 3 days. The bullet went through your lung, nearly hit your heart, and your collarbone is broken." Maggie set the glass down. Her tone was gentle, but practical. "You are very lucky. Either someone up there is watching you, or you are so stubborn even death gave up." 3 days. Olivia let it sink in, trying to arrange the shattered pieces of memory. The diner, Maya, Ethan, the bullet. The boy. Olivia jerked upright, ignoring the pain, and grabbed Maggie's wrist. Ethan. Is he all right? And Maya, his mother, she. Calm down, calm down. Maggie gently freed Olivia's grip and pressed her back onto the pillows. They are both safe. The boy was not hurt, only frightened. His mother has a few minor scrapes. They are somewhere safe. Relief rushed through Olivia like warm water. She did not know why she cared so much about two strangers, but she knew that if anything had happened to Ethan, she would never have forgiven herself. When the panic finally loosened its grip, Olivia truly looked around the room for the first time, and what she saw made her stop breathing. This room was 3 times the size of her miserable studio apartment. The bed beneath her was a king-size bed, with an elaborately carved wooden frame and cream silk sheets that felt impossibly soft. The curtains were deep red velvet, heavy, luxurious. The furniture was antique, the kind Olivia only saw in museums, or in glossy home magazines she flipped through while waiting in line at the grocery store. On the bedside table to her left, beside medicine bottles and medical equipment, sat a vase of white roses. The flowers were so perfect they looked carved from porcelain, not a single petal creased, tiny beads of dew still clinging to them. No card, no note, just the roses, pure white, silent. This is not a hospital, Olivia said. It was not a question. Maggie was quiet for a moment. Something flickered in her eyes that Olivia could not read. No, sweetheart, it is not a hospital. Then where am I? Before Maggie could answer, Olivia's gaze drifted to the window. Through the slightly parted drapes, she saw a garden stretching out, perfectly trimmed rows of trees, a marble fountain, and farther away, a high wall lined with security cameras glinting in the sunlight. And she understood. This was not a hospital. This was a mansion, a prison covered in gold. Maggie had just opened her mouth to answer when a knock sounded at the door. Not a polite knock, not a request. It was a notification, short, decisive, the kind of knock from someone who knew the door would open no matter what the answer was. The heavy oak door swung inward, and the man from the diner walked in. Olivia recognized him instantly, even though he looked nothing like he had that night. The perfect black suit was gone. Now he wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, the collar open. His hair was slightly tousled, as if his hand had been through it too many times. Dark shadows lay under storm gray eyes. His jawline was set tight, as if he had not slept in days. But it was still him, still those eyes, sharp, penetrating, the eyes that had looked at her as if she were the strangest creature he had ever seen, right before everything fell into chaos. Maggie, let us speak alone. His voice was velvet wrapped around steel, but something at the edges had softened, something weary. Maggie nodded. She gave Olivia's hand a small squeeze, a quiet reassurance, then slipped out. The door closed with a soft click, and Olivia suddenly realized she was alone with the man she had dared challenge in a crowded diner. The man who, Maya had said, could kill her without blinking. "You are awake," he said, moving toward the window instead of toward the bed, keeping distance. "Where am I?" Olivia asked, flat and direct, no circling. "My house." "Why?" "Because a hospital is not safe." He turned to look at her, one hand in his pocket. "And because you took a bullet for someone I intended to take, that is a debt I do not like to carry." Olivia wanted to laugh, but her chest hurt too much. "I did not ask you to owe me anything. You do not have to ask. A debt still exists." He tilted his head, studying her with cool curiosity. "Your rent has been paid for the next 6 months. Your landlord was told you are recovering from an accident. And your job at the diner," he paused, "has been handled." Heat rushed into Olivia's face, not from shame, but from anger. "Handled. You paid my rent without asking. You interfered with my job without asking. Who do you think you are?" "Vincent Castellano," he answered, steady as stone, "and I am the man keeping you alive. I did not ask you to keep me alive. I did not ask anything from you." Olivia tried to sit up, even as pain screamed through her chest. "I want to go home." "No." One word. Final. Cold as ice. "You cannot keep me here." "I can." Vincent stepped closer, and even though he did not raise his voice, something in his eyes made Olivia fall silent. "Do you know who attacked the diner that night? They are Nikolai Volkov's men. Volkov is my rival. He tried to kill me, and he is willing to kill anyone standing near me. And you brave, foolish girl, were seen with me. You were seen in my arms. You were brought to my house." He stopped at her bedside, close enough that Olivia could see the tension standing out along his neck. "In my world, that means you belong to me." And Volkov will want to use you to hurt me. I am just a waitress, Olivia said, her voice weaker than she hated. I am nobody. You became somebody the moment you stepped between me and that table. Vincent leaned down, and his storm gray eyes burned into hers. You stepped into a world you do not understand, Miss Bennet. And now, you cannot step out again. Silence. Heavy. Airless. Olivia could hear her own heart, could feel the weight of every word he had spoken pressing on her chest harder than the bullet ever had. So I am your prisoner, she said, her voice shaking, but she did not look away. You are my guest. Guests are not forbidden to leave. Smart guests know when to stay. Vincent straightened, the space between them turning into an invisible wall. Rest. Your wound needs time to heal. We will talk more when you are stronger. I do not want to talk more. I want to go home. Your home is not safe. That is not your decision. Now it is my decision. He turned and walked to the door. Maggie will take care of you. If you need anything, tell her. Vincent. His name slipped from her lips before she could stop it. He paused, hand on the doorknob, but he did not turn around. I do not belong to you, Olivia said, each word clear and firm. I do not belong to anyone. Silence held for a heartbeat. 2. We will see. Then he left. The door shut behind him, and Olivia understood that her gilded cage had just been locked one more time. A week passed before Olivia was allowed out of bed. A week of dull, constant pain every time she breathed. A week of painkillers that left her mind hazy and slow. A week of Maggie coming in to change her dressings and check her wounds with the patience of a saint. And a week of Vincent Castellano disappearing as if their conversation had never happened. When Maggie finally declared she was well enough to walk, Olivia almost sprang out of the bed, even as pain protested. She needed to move. She needed to do something besides lie there staring at the ceiling and thinking about the gilded cage holding her. Slowly, sweetheart. Maggie took her by the elbow and helped her out of the room. Your injuries are not fully healed. We are just doing a light little tour. A tour. As if this were a 5-star hotel instead of a prison. But Olivia did not complain. She needed to know where she was. She needed to know if there was an exit. Vincent Castellano's estate was not simply a house. It was a world, sealed off, self-contained. Maggie led her through long corridors with gleaming marble floors, walls lined with paintings Olivia guessed were expensive antiques. They passed a living room the size of the entire first floor of an ordinary house, a dining room with an oak table that could seat 20 people. And then they reached a library that made Olivia stop. Bookshelves rose from floor to ceiling, packed with thousands of leather-bound volumes stamped in gold. Sliding brass ladders waited to reach the highest shelves. Late afternoon light filtered through stained glass windows, spilling bands of gold and red across the wooden floor. In another life, Olivia might have thought she had stepped into heaven. From the library, they went out into the garden, and if the inside of the estate had stunned her, the outside left her wordless. The grounds stretched like a living architecture magazine. Flower beds trimmed into perfect geometric shapes, a white marble fountain, lush green hedges forming shaded walkways. Farther out, she saw a greenhouse filled with roses in every color, a pool of turquoise water sparkling under the sun, and a smaller building that Maggie explained was the gym. Beautiful, perfect, and entirely a cage, because Olivia saw other things too. Security cameras hidden in the trees, turning slowly like eyes that never blinked. Men in black suits patrolling the gravel paths with steady, military steps, and the wall surrounding the entire property, at least 10 feet high, its top glinting with something she guessed was barbed wire or electronic sensors. Beautiful, is it not? Maggie asked, her voice gentle, her eyes knowing. Beautiful, Olivia agreed, and there is no way out. Maggie did not answer. She only squeezed Olivia's hand and led her toward the gym. Physical therapy began the next day, and it was hell. Every movement that stretched her shoulder felt like a knife. Even the smallest exercises brought sweat to her skin and tears to the edge of her eyes. But Olivia gritted her teeth and endured. She had endured 3 years with Derek. She could endure this. It was during one of those sessions that she met Tony. He was one of the younger guards, probably not yet 30, with neatly cropped brown hair and unexpectedly warm brown eyes and a hard face. He had been assigned to stand watch outside the gym while she worked, and after days of silence, Olivia spoke first, because she was going out of her mind from loneliness. How long have you worked for Castellano? She asked, struggling to lift her left arm above her head. 5 years, Tony answered, his voice softer than she expected. He saved my sister. Olivia paused and looked at him. Saved. She was taken, Tony said, his gaze darkening with memory. A trafficking ring. She was only 17. The police could not do anything, or did not want to. I was desperate. I begged everywhere. He stopped and drew a breath. Then someone introduced me to Mr. Castellano. He did not ask for money. He did not ask for conditions. He only asked where she was, and he saved her. Within 48 hours, Tony looked at Olivia, his sincerity almost painful. The men who took my sister, they cannot hurt anyone anymore, and my sister is in college now. Boston. Second year, studying psychology. Olivia said nothing. She did not know what to say, because that story did not fit the monster she had built in her mind. It did not fit the man who had threatened Maya in the diner that night, but it did not completely contradict him either. Mr. Castellano is not a good man in the usual way, Tony said, as if he could read her thoughts. But he has rules. No trafficking, no hurting children, no touching innocent people. Tony shrugged. In this world, that is already more than most others. Olivia turned back to her exercises. The pain in her shoulder suddenly felt a little easier to bear. She did not believe Vincent Castellano was good. But maybe, just maybe, he was not entirely a monster. For the next 2 weeks, Olivia learned that Vincent Castellano was a ghost in his own house. He rarely appeared. He left before dawn, in a convoy of gleaming black SUVs, and he returned after midnight, when the entire estate had already fallen asleep. The times they happened to cross paths could be counted on one hand, and each encounter was so brief it was almost meaningless. One morning, she was eating breakfast in the small dining room when he passed by, stopped just long enough to ask, "How is the wound?" Then he disappeared through a door without waiting for her answer. One afternoon, she was in physical therapy when she caught a glimpse of him at the far end of the hallway, watching, and when their eyes met, he turned away, polite, distant, as if she were a guest he was obligated to host, but did not truly want. But Olivia was not stupid. She noticed the small things he probably did not think she would see. The way foods she liked began appearing more often at the table, even though she had never told anyone. The way the books she lingered over in the library would be waiting on her bedside table at night. The way the security cameras inside the estate seemed to follow her, turning slowly when she walked past. He was watching her, from far away, through cold screens, but still watching. Olivia did not know how that made her feel. Safe, violated, or something in between that she did not dare name. That night, she could not sleep. Her shoulder ached with that dull, familiar pain, the kind no medication could fully touch, and her mind spun in circles, about her empty apartment out there, about her old life, the one she was no longer sure she even wanted back, about Derek, and the scars he had left behind, on her body and inside her soul. When the clock struck 2 in the morning and sleep still refused to come, Olivia decided to go down to the library. At least there, she could find something to read, instead of lying awake, counting imaginary cracks in the ceiling. At night, the estate was frighteningly quiet. Her footsteps echoed on marble floors, and every shadow felt like it was hiding a secret. She pushed open the library doors, expecting emptiness and the smell of old paper. Instead, she found light. A fire burned low in the fireplace, throwing dancing shadows along the walls, and in the leather armchair in front of the flames, Vincent Castellano sat with a glass of whiskey in his hand, his gaze fixed on the fire as if it held answers to questions he could not bring himself to ask out loud. Olivia froze in the doorway. She should turn around, pretend she had seen nothing, go back to her room. But before she could move, he spoke without turning. "Cannot sleep." His voice was low and slightly rough, as if he had not spoken to anyone in a long time. "My shoulder hurts," Olivia answered, not knowing why she was being honest. "There is whiskey if you want it. Helps you sleep better than pills." She hesitated for a beat, then stepped inside and sat in the chair across from him. Vincent poured a small amount and handed it to her, without looking directly into her eyes. They sat in silence for a while, with only the soft crackle of the fire and the warm bite of whiskey in the air. "You read a lot," Vincent said at last. "Maggie says you finished an entire shelf in 2 weeks. There is nothing else to do." Olivia shrugged, and the motion sent a sharp jolt through her shoulder. "This library is impressive. Have you read all of it?" "Most of it." He took a sip of whiskey. "Books are the only friends who do not betray you." The words were simple, but something in them made Olivia study him more closely. In the flicker of firelight, Vincent Castellano no longer looked like a monster or a powerful mafia boss. He looked like a tired, lonely man, drinking by himself in the middle of the night. "Loneliness is an old friend of mine," Olivia said, not knowing why she shared it. "I have lived with it for a long time." Vincent finally looked at her. His gray eyes caught the firelight and held something she could not read. "You are different than I thought. What did you think I was? I thought you would cry, beg, make a scene." His mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "Instead, you read, you do physical therapy, and you look at my cameras like you want to burn them down." Olivia could not stop the small laugh that escaped her. "I lived with a monster once. Compared to him, you are just a minor inconvenience." Something shifted in Vincent's eyes. A flicker of curiosity, a flicker of something darker, but he did not ask, and she was grateful for that. They sat a little longer in silence, the strange kind that was not uncomfortable, that did not demand to be filled with pointless words. Just two lonely people sharing the same room in the middle of the night. At last, Vincent stood. "You should sleep. Physical therapy tomorrow will not be easier if you stay up all night." He paused at the door, turned back for half a second. "Good night, Olivia." It was the first time he had spoken her name, and when the door closed, Olivia realized her heart was beating faster than normal. The sleepless nights in the library became an unspoken habit. Olivia did not always find Vincent there, but when she did, they would sit in silence, or trade a few brief remarks about the books on the shelves. No one mentioned the daytime. No one mentioned the world outside that warm room with the fireplace and the scent of old paper, as if late night created its own separate space, where ordinary rules no longer existed. On the fifth night, Vincent was more drunk than usual. Olivia knew the moment she stepped in, from the whiskey glass in his hand, nearly empty, from the way his storm-gray eyes stared into the fire with a hollowness she had never seen before. She meant to turn around, to give him privacy, but his voice cut through the dark. "Today is my sister's birthday." Olivia stopped. She had not known he had a sister. No one in this estate had ever mentioned her. 28, Vincent went on, his voice rough and far away. She would be 28 today. If she were still alive. Olivia slowly sat in the chair she had come to know, saying nothing, only waiting. Sometimes silence is the greatest gift we can offer another person. Vincent poured more whiskey, then took a long drink as if he were trying to drown something. "Isabella." He spoke the name as if it hurt him. "My sister was Isabella. My mother died giving birth to her, so I practically raised her. My father was too busy with work, and I thought I could be her brother and her father and her mother." He let out a laugh, bitter, without joy. "I was wrong." "What happened?" Olivia asked gently. "She started using drugs at 16. Vincent set the glass down. He laced his fingers together and stared at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. "I did not know. Or I did not want to know. I was too busy becoming what my father wanted me to be. Too busy learning how to run this empire. Too busy to notice my sister was dying right in front of me." Silence. Fire crackling. Somewhere in the estate, an old clock struck 3 in the morning. She overdosed at 19. Vincent's voice was frighteningly flat, as if he had told himself this story so many times it no longer had the power to make him cry. In the bathroom of her apartment, alone, I was the one who found her. Olivia felt her heart tighten. She knew that feeling. The feeling of losing someone you should have protected. The guilt that eats from the inside like acid. She did not think. She did not weigh it. She simply reached across the space between their chairs and laid her hand over his. Vincent went still. His whole body tightened like a wire pulled taut, as if her gentle touch were an electric shock. He looked down at her hand on his, then he looked up at her face. And in that moment, Olivia saw something fracture behind those storm-gray eyes. Not weakness, fear. Fear of softness. Fear of letting anyone see the cracks beneath the armor. "That was not your fault," Olivia said softly. "She made her own choices. You cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. You do not understand." Vincent yanked his hand away, abrupt, and stood. He moved back as if she were fire and he had just been burned. "I should have been there. I should have noticed. I was her brother, and I should have realized my husband was a monster before I married him," Olivia answered, her voice calm. "But sometimes we do not see what is right in front of us because we are too busy looking at what we want to see." Vincent stopped, his back still to her. His shoulders were rigid, his breathing heavy. Olivia thought he would speak, turn around, let her see a little more of the man behind the wall. But he did not. "Go to sleep, Olivia." His voice returned to cold control. "It is late." Then he walked out of the library. The door slammed behind him like a declaration. Olivia stayed where she was, alone beside the dying fire, staring at the whiskey glass he had left behind. And she wondered how many walls a person had to build to protect themselves from pain, and whether those walls, in the end, became a prison of their own. After that night in the library, Vincent disappeared completely. No more accidental encounters in the hallways. No more late nights by the fireplace. Nothing left but absence. echoing through every corner of the estate. Olivia told herself she did not care, that his distance was a good thing, a reminder that she did not belong here, that she was only a prisoner waiting to be released. But at night, when she lay alone in the cold luxury of her room, she could not stop thinking about his eyes when he spoke of Isabella, about the way he recoiled when she touched his hand, like a wild animal that had forgotten what it felt like to be stroked. 3 days later, Olivia was walking through the estate when she heard voices. By now she had explored most of the house, partly to kill time, partly to search for an escape route she knew did not exist. Today she drifted toward the east wing, a place she had never set foot in, and there, she heard them. The sound carried through a heavy oak door left slightly ajar. 2 men arguing, just loud enough that she could catch every word. "You cannot keep her here forever." The first voice was rough, sharp with impatience, the voice of a man who had run out of patience. "The families are asking questions. They want to know who she is, why you are protecting her, what value she has. That is not their concern, Vincent." Olivia recognized his voice at once, cold and sharp as steel. "It is their concern when it affects the alliance." The other man shot back. "She is a liability, Vincent. A waitress no one has ever heard of. No strategic value, no family connections. Volkov is using her to distract you, and you are letting him win. Marco." Vincent's voice turned so dangerous Olivia felt a chill crawl up her spine even from where she stood. She took a bullet for a child she did not even know. She stood up to me when no one in that room dared breathe too hard. "She is not a liability. Then what is she?" The other man snapped. "How do you plan to explain her to the families?" Silence held for 1 beat. 2. Then Vincent spoke, and his voice carried something Olivia had never heard from him before. Not coldness, not control. A pure warning, the kind that froze the blood in her veins. "Anyone who touches her dies. That is all the families need to know. Vincent, you cannot. Get out, Marco. We will talk later." Heavy footsteps. Too late. Olivia realized she needed to move, needed to leave before she was discovered, but her feet felt nailed to the floor, and before she could react, the door swung wide. Marco stood there, a man in his 40s, hair threaded with gray, angular face, black eyes cold as stone. He looked at her with undisguised contempt, lips pressed into a hard line. "Eavesdropping," he snorted. "Typical." Then he brushed past her, his footsteps echoing on the marble, until he disappeared around the corner of the hallway. Olivia stood there, heart hammering, not sure whether to run or to face what came next. The answer came when Vincent's voice sounded from inside the room. "Come in, Olivia." Not a request, a command. She drew a deep breath and stepped over the threshold. Vincent's office was unlike any room she had seen in the estate. No extravagant display, no antiques, no expensive paintings, only modern, practical lines, and 1 wall filled with security monitors, showing feeds from dozens of cameras across the property. Vincent stood behind a massive black wooden desk, arms folded, storm-gray eyes fixed on her with an expression she could not read. "How much did you hear?" Olivia chose honesty. There was no point lying when he could watch everything she did through those screens. "Enough to know I am a liability, and enough to know someone wants me dead." Vincent did not react. Not a blink, not a frown. Only silence, long and heavy. "Volkov," he said at last. "Nikolai Volkov. He is the one behind the attack at the diner, and he will not stop until he gets you." "Why?" "I am just a waitress. Because you were seen with me. Because I saved you. In this world, that means something." Vincent came out from behind the desk, stopping closer to her. "Volkov wants to hurt me, and he thinks you are the way to do it." Olivia swallowed, throat dry. "So what am I supposed to do?" "That is what we need to discuss." Vincent stopped a few steps away, his gaze burning into hers. "Sit down, Olivia. This is going to be a long conversation." Olivia sat down in the black leather chair in front of the desk, feeling as if she were taking the defendant's seat in a trial where she did not even know what she was being charged with. Vincent did not sit. He leaned against the edge of the desk, arms folded across his chest, storm-gray eyes never leaving her for a second. Behind him, dozens of security monitors flickered with silent images from across the estate, from the gardens, from the driveways leading to the gates. A constant reminder that nothing happened here without Vincent Castellano knowing. "Volkov is not the kind of man who quits," Vincent began, his voice low and even. "He has pursued targets for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And now he thinks you are my weakness." "I am not your weakness," Olivia replied, her voice harder than she intended. "I do not even know you." "That does not matter. Volkov believes you matter to me, and in this world, Perception is reality. Vincent tipped his head, studying her. If you leave here, he will find you. Not today. Maybe not this week. But he will find you. And when he does, he will do terrible things to you just to send me a message. A coldness slid down Olivia's spine. So what am I supposed to do? Stay here forever like a prisoner? No. Vincent paused, and for the first time since she met him, Olivia saw something like hesitation pass through those gray eyes. There is a way. The only way you will truly be safe. What way? You need to marry me. Time stopped. Olivia was sure she had misheard. She waited for Vincent to laugh, to tell her it was a joke, but his face was stone serious. You are insane, she said, springing to her feet. You are completely out of your mind. Sit down, Olivia. I am not sitting down. You just asked me to marry you like you are offering me a business contract, because that is exactly what this is. Vincent did not raise his voice. He did not move. His calmness only made her angrier. In my world, there are unwritten laws, rules that even men like Volkov have to follow, and one of those rules is this. A boss's wife is untouchable. Olivia froze mid-step. Untouchable. If you are my wife, you become family, and family is sacred. Vincent straightened and walked toward her. Anyone who touches you will not only face me, they will face every allied family I have. That is protection no money can buy, no wall can build. And you expect me to believe you are doing this out of kindness. Olivia folded her arms, fighting to keep her voice from shaking. What do you really want from me? Nothing. Vincent stopped one step away, close enough that she could see the tiny gold flecks scattered through his gray eyes. This is temporary. When the threat from Volkov is over, when everything is safe, we will annul it. You can leave with enough money to start your life over anywhere you want. A new identity if you need it. A completely new beginning. And in the meantime, I have to play your devoted wife. You have to appear with me at important events. You have to live here. You have to wear a wedding ring. Vincent tipped his head. But that is all. Nothing else. Olivia clenched her jaw. I have conditions. Say them. Separate rooms. I do not sleep in the same room as you. Agreed. Freedom to move around the house. Not watched like a criminal. Within safety limits. Agreed. And no one forces me to do anything. Olivia met his eyes, her voice like steel. Anything. I am not property. I am not decoration. This is an agreement. Not slavery. Something flashed in Vincent's eyes. Surprise. Maybe respect. Agreed, he said, softer. Everything you asked for, I agree to. Olivia did not answer. She turned and walked to the door, needing air, needing space to think. You have until tomorrow morning, Vincent called after her. After that, I need an answer. She did not look back, did not speak. She only walked out, through the endless hallways, up the stairs, into her room, shut the door, and leaned her back against it as if the wood could keep the outside world from getting in. Marriage, to a mafia boss, she, Olivia Bennett, a night shift diner waitress, who had fled a violent marriage only to fall into another one with a man 1,000 times more dangerous. This was madness, complete madness. But when she lay in bed that night, staring up at the ornate ceiling she now knew down to every line, she thought about her options. Go back to her old apartment and wait for Volkov to find her. Run and live in fear for the rest of her life. Or accept this insane offer and have a chance, however small, to be truly free one day. She thought about Vincent, about the way he spoke of Isabella with pain he could not hide, about the way he pulled back when she touched his hand, like a wild animal afraid of tenderness, about the way he said, anyone who touches her dies, with a certainty that held not a flicker of doubt. He was not a good man. She knew that. But maybe, just maybe, he was not entirely the monster she once thought he was. When dawn finally leaked through the curtains, Olivia had her answer. She stood outside Vincent's office at 7 a.m. and knocked 3 short times. The door opened, and he was there, still in the clothes from the night before. The dark circles under his eyes told her he had not slept either. I have an additional condition, Olivia said instead of greeting him. Vincent tilted his head, waiting. When this is over, you let me go. No questions, no conditions. You let me disappear if that is what I want. Silence. Then Vincent nodded, slow and final. Fine. Then, Olivia drew a deep breath, feeling like she was stepping off a cliff into a bottomless void. I agree. 3 days. Olivia had 3 days to prepare for a wedding to a man she had first met less than a month ago in a grimy diner at 2 a.m. 3 days to transform from an anonymous waitress into the wife of one of the most powerful mafia bosses on the east coast of the United States. It felt like she was living inside a movie about someone else's life. And Olivia was the stunt double who did not know her lines. On the first day, they took her to buy a wedding dress. Not alone, of course. 2 black SUVs, 6 bodyguards, and a convoy that escorted her to a high-end boutique in Manhattan. Olivia had never even heard of. The kind of place with no price tags, because if you have to ask, you cannot afford it. The entire store was closed for her. The salespeople bowed as if she were royalty, and Olivia stood in the middle of a sea of silk and lace, not knowing what she was doing there. In the end, she chose a simple dress. Ivory silk, with delicate lace straps along the sleeves and back. Not because she loved it, because she was too exhausted to try on anything else. She did not look in the mirror when they fitted it on her. She did not want to see the bride in that reflection. Maggie became her lifeline in those chaotic days. The Irish woman with red hair threaded with silver and knowing green eyes always seemed to understand when to speak and when to stay quiet. She helped Olivia choose flowers, choose a hairstyle, choose jewelry, and more than anything, she sat beside Olivia each night when sleep would not come, bringing hot tea and a steady, peaceful presence that asked for no explanations. "You are terrified, are you not?" Maggie asked on the second night, when they sat in Olivia's room with cups of tea gone cold. "I do not know what I feel," Olivia admitted. "I am afraid, yes, but there is something else too. Something I am afraid to name." Maggie only nodded. She did not ask for more, and Olivia was grateful for that. The night before the wedding, Olivia could not sleep. She tossed for hours, then gave up, slipped on a silk robe, and stood by the window, looking out at the garden drowned in darkness. A thin crescent moon hung in the sky, spilling silver light over the trees and the silent fountain. Beautiful, peaceful, and completely fake, just like everything else in her new life. A soft knock startled her. When she opened the door, Vincent stood there in everyday clothes. A black shirt with the collar unbuttoned, his hair slightly disheveled as if he had not been able to sleep either. In his hand was a small black velvet box. "Am I disturbing you?" he asked, and there was something in his voice that was different from usual, softer, less controlled. "I cannot sleep," Olivia said, opening the door a little wider. Vincent did not step inside. He only stood there, looking at her for a long moment, as if searching her face for something he could not quite name. Then he held the box out to her. "This belonged to my mother," he said as Olivia took it, her fingers trembling slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside was an exquisite white gold bracelet, set with small emeralds arranged like leaves. It was not flashy, not ostentatious, just beautiful in a classic, timeless way. "She wore it on her wedding day," Vincent continued, his voice lowering, "and she told me that one day I should give it to the woman I marry." Olivia looked up at him, not knowing what to say. This was not what she expected. Not from him. "For luck," Vincent said, and before she could react, he turned and walked away, his tall figure dissolving into the darkness of the hallway, as if he had never been there at all. Olivia stood there for a long time, staring at the bracelet in her hand, then at the shadows where Vincent had disappeared, and she wondered whether all of this was only an arrangement, or whether behind the walls Vincent had built, there was something more. That morning, Olivia stood before the large mirror in her room and did not recognize the woman looking back at her. The ivory silk dress hugged her body as if it had been made for her alone. Delicate lace straps and panels disguised the scar on her shoulder where the bullet had gone through. Her hair was swept up, with small curls spilling softly along her cheekbones. Maggie had spent 2 hours on her makeup, light, natural, just enough to bring out Olivia's green eyes and hide the shadows beneath them from too many sleepless nights. She looked beautiful. For the first time in her life, Olivia truly thought she was beautiful, but she did not feel like a bride. She felt like an actress in a play, one who did not know her lines. "It is time, sweetheart," Maggie said gently, giving Olivia's hand a small, encouraging squeeze. Olivia nodded, swallowed hard, and stepped out of the room. The garden had been transformed completely for the ceremony. A massive arch of white roses stood at the end of a petal-strewn aisle. On either side, neat rows of white chairs had been set for about 50 guests, 50 strangers, all dressed in expensive clothes, all wearing the sharp, appraising gaze of predators, mafia families, the people Vincent needed to convince that this marriage was real. Olivia paused at the head of the aisle, and a bitter truth rose in her throat, something she had tried not to think about. She would walk alone, no father waiting to take her arm, no mother crying happy tears in the front row, no friends smiling encouragement, only her, alone, stepping into a manufactured marriage with a man she had met less than a month ago. She drew a deep breath, lifted her chin, and began to walk. Each step echoed in the silence. She could feel 50 pairs of eyes measuring her, weighing her, wondering who she was, and why Vincent Castellano had chosen her. She did not look at them. She looked straight ahead, to where Vincent waited beneath the rose arch, and her heart missed a beat. He wore a black tuxedo, tailored so perfectly it seemed carved to the lines of his tall, powerful frame. His dark hair was slicked back neatly, sharpening the cut of his jaw and drawing attention to the storm. Gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that almost made her stumble. He was breathtaking, not the soft, pleasant kind of beauty, dangerous beauty, sharp-edged, the kind that made you want to run, and, at the same time, made it impossible to look away. Olivia reached him, and Vincent held out his hand. She placed her hand in his, felt her fingers trembling, and prayed he would not notice. But he did. She knew he did because his fingers tightened around hers, just slightly, a small gesture no one else could see, as if he were saying, "I am here. You are not alone." The officiant began to speak, familiar words about marriage, about commitment, about love and respect. Olivia barely heard any of it. All she could focus on was the warmth of Vincent's hand, the clean, expensive scent of his cologne, the frantic rhythm of her heart inside her ribs. "Vincent Alessandro Castellano, do you take this woman to be your wife, to love and to honor her, in sickness and in health, until death parts you?" Vincent looked straight into her eyes as he answered, his voice steady, without a flicker of doubt. "I do." "Olivia Grace Bennett, do you take this man to be your husband, to love and to honor him, in sickness and in health, until death parts you?" She opened her mouth, but for a moment no sound came. She thought of Derek, of her first marriage, of vows betrayed, of scars that never fully faded. She thought of her old life, the filthy apartment, the job with no future, and she thought of Vincent, the mysterious man with sorrowful eyes, the man who had grieved in the dark for the sister he lost, the man who had placed his mother's bracelet in her hands like a wish for luck. "I do." Her voice shook, but it was clear. "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." The entire garden went still. 50 pairs of eyes locked onto them. Vincent turned toward her, and Olivia saw a flicker of hesitation in those gray eyes, a silent question. Then he leaned down and kissed her. It was brief, gentle. His lips touched hers for only a few seconds, just long enough to satisfy the watching guests, just long enough to complete the ritual. But in those few seconds, something moved through her, like electricity, like fire, as if a part of her had suddenly awakened after a long sleep. When Vincent pulled back, his eyes were slightly wider, as if he had felt it too, something he had not expected. They looked at each other for 1 second, then 2, while polite applause rose around them. And Olivia knew, in that moment, that the arrangement between them had just become far more complicated. The grand hall of the estate had been transformed into a fairy tale world so lavish it bordered on the unreal. Thousands of candles burned beside enormous crystal chandeliers, bathing the room in warm, golden light that shimmered over expensive suits and glittering evening gowns. In one corner, a live orchestra played classical waltzes, the violins weaving through laughter, conversation, and the soft clink of champagne flutes. Banquet tables draped in immaculate white linen overflowed with fresh flowers and dishes. Olivia didn't even know the names of the kind of food meant for people who were born rich. Olivia sat beside Vincent at the head table, his mother's emerald bracelet glittering at her wrist, the weight of a diamond wedding ring heavy on her finger. She smiled at guests who came to offer congratulations, nodded at compliments she knew were hollow, and tried not to let anyone see how hard her heart was pounding beneath the ivory silk. Playing the happy bride, it turned out, was more exhausting than an overnight shift at the Blue Moon. "You're shaking." Vincent tipped his head toward her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "I'm fine." "You're not fine, but you're doing very well." "You stole." Before Olivia could answer, a voice cut through their exchange, a voice that made Vincent go rigid at her side. "Vincent Castellano. Congratulations." Olivia looked up and saw her nightmare walking toward them in the flesh. Nikolai Volkov was a man in his 60s, tall and lean, with silver-white hair combed flawlessly back and an expensive charcoal gray suit. At a glance, he could have been a successful businessman or a seasoned politician, but his eyes betrayed everything, pale blue and ice-cold. They held no warmth, no humanity, snake eyes assessing prey. "Victor." Vincent rose to his feet, his tone flat as water before a storm. "I don't remember sending you an invitation." "Oh, Vincent, we've been colleagues for a long time. How could I not come to congratulate you on your big day? Volkov smiled, but the smile never reached his eyes. Then those poisonous eyes slid to Olivia, and she felt as if she'd been plunged into ice water. And this must be the beautiful bride I've heard so much about. Olivia Bennett. Oh, excuse me. Olivia Castellano now, isn't it? He stepped closer, and Olivia felt Vincent shift nearer, a wall at her side. Volkov stopped in front of her and tilted his head, studying her with a fascination that made her skin crawl. How interesting, he drawled, each word slow, venomous. A plain little diner waitress suddenly becomes Mrs. Castellano. You must have something very special about you, Econsis. Thank you for the compliment, Olivia said, surprised that her voice didn't tremble. I assume what's special about me isn't your business. One eyebrow lifted, surprise flickering across Volkov's face before it vanished. Bold. I like that. He leaned in one step closer. His voice dropping into a whisper meant only for the three of them. But I wonder, Mrs. Castellano, in this game, are you a pawn or a queen? Olivia held his gaze. No blinking. No shaking. No retreat. She had lived with a monster before. She had counted tiles on the bathroom floor while waiting for Derek's rage to pass. She had learned to hide fear until it became instinct. I'm whatever I need to be, she replied, calm as if discussing the weather. And you're whatever my husband allows you to be here. This is my wedding, not your negotiating table. Volkov went silent. 1 second. 2. Then he laughed, cold, humorless. Oh, Vincent. You found yourself an interesting one. Anyone. And now you've offered your congratulations. Vincent stepped level with Olivia, his voice steel. I'm sure you have other things to do. Don't let us keep you. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order, and Volkov, no matter how dangerous he was, understood lines. This was Vincent's territory, Vincent's wedding, and 50 pairs of eyes were watching every move. Of course. Volkov inclined his head, the serpent smile still on his mouth. Enjoy tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Castellano. We'll be seeing each other again. He turned and walked away, dissolving into the crowd as if he'd never been there at all. Olivia didn't realize she'd been holding her breath until Volkov disappeared completely. She exhaled, her knees suddenly weak, and sank back into her chair harder than she meant to. Under the table, where no one could see, Vincent's hand found hers. His fingers threaded through hers, warm and steady, an anchor in the storm that had just passed. You did well, he murmured, and his voice was different now. Not cold, not controlled, but edged with something that felt like respect. You did better than anyone I've ever seen. Olivia didn't answer. She only tightened her grip on his hand, and they sat there in silence, two strangers who had just become husband and wife, facing an enemy they both knew would not stop until he got what he wanted. She had smiled for hours, shaken hands with dozens of people whose names she couldn't even remember, and played the role of the blissful bride until it felt like her face might freeze in that false smile forever. Vincent led her up the staircase in silence, his hand resting lightly at the small of her back, purely a polite, formal gesture. They walked through the familiar corridors, but instead of turning toward Olivia's old room, Vincent stopped in front of a pair of double doors at the end of the east wing hallway, the master bedroom, the room meant for husband and wife. Olivia swallowed hard as the doors opened, revealing a space even more opulent than anything she'd seen in this mansion. A massive king-size bed with an elaborately carved blackwood frame, deep red velvet drapes, a marble fireplace burning low, and a wall of glass overlooking the garden bathed in moonlight. Too big, too luxurious, and too silent once the doors closed behind them. I'll sleep on the chair, Vincent said immediately, as if reading her thoughts. He nodded toward a large leather armchair by the fireplace. You take the bed. Olivia nodded, not trusting her voice if she tried to speak. She moved toward the window, staring out at the garden without really seeing it, forcing her breathing to slow while her heart hammered in her chest. Volkov, she finally said. How dangerous is he? Silence stretched. Then she heard Vincent's footsteps come closer, and when she turned, he stood a few steps away. He'd taken off his jacket. He was in a white dress shirt now, the black bow tie loosened and hanging around his neck. The feud between the Castellano family and Volkov has lasted nearly 3 decades, he said, his voice low and tired. My father and his father were allies until they weren't. The details don't matter. What matters is Volkov won't stop until one of us ends up in the ground. And now I'm in the middle of that war. You're under my protection in that war, he corrected. That's different. Olivia turned away. She didn't want him to see the fear in her eyes. She reached behind her back, trying to tug down the zipper of her wedding dress, but her fingers were shaking, and the zipper was too high. She fumbled for a moment, feeling ridiculous and helpless, before she heard footsteps behind her again. "Let me." Vincent's voice was low and close right behind her. Olivia went still. She should have said no. She should have stepped away. But she didn't. She just stood there, barely breathing, as Vincent's fingers found the zipper. He drew it down slowly, and Olivia felt every inch of fabric part, exposing her back to the cool air and to eyes she knew were looking. Then his fingertips brushed her skin, just for a moment, a light sweep between her shoulder blades, where the bullet scar was still new and red. They both froze. The air between them thickened, heavy with something Olivia didn't dare name. She could feel his breath at the back of her neck, could feel the heat of his body standing far too close. Then Vincent pulled away abruptly, as if he'd been burned. "I'll wait out in the hallway," he said, rougher than usual. "Call me when you're done." He left. The door clicked shut behind him, and Olivia stood there alone, her heart pounding like a war drum, the place he'd touched still burning hot on her skin. She changed in a daze, slipping into the silk nightgown Maggie had set out, then climbed into the bed that was far too wide for one person. When Vincent came back, he'd changed into simple sleep clothes, black pants, and a gray t-shirt. Without a word, he went straight to the armchair, sat down, and closed his eyes. Olivia lay in the darkness, staring up at the ceiling, listening to the soft crackle of the fire and the steady breathing of the man in the corner of the room. Her husband, Vincent Castellano, was her husband now, and when she finally closed her eyes, she couldn't stop thinking about the feel of his fingers on her back, about how he'd retreated as if he were afraid of his own emotions, about the question she couldn't bring herself to ask out loud. What am I feeling for this man? 3 months slipped by faster than Olivia had imagined. 3 months of breakfasts in the small dining room, with black coffee and toast, of afternoons in the library, with books and silence, of nights lying only a few meters away from Vincent, yet feeling as though they were separated by years of light. 3 months for her to learn how to live in a world she had never known existed. Vincent began teaching her about the families, not because she asked, but because, as he put it, knowledge was a weapon, and she needed to be armed. The Moretti family in Philadelphia were longtime allies, dependable, but always demanding something in return. The Santini family in Boston were neutral, dangerous, precisely because you never knew where they truly stood. The Lombardi family in Chicago were old enemies, currently in a period of uneasy truce. And Volkov, of course. Volkov was the kind of threat that never slept. Olivia memorized every name, every face, every relationship, complicated as a spider's web. She learned the unspoken rules. Never ask about work in front of outsiders. Always stand beside your husband at events. Never show weakness in front of an enemy. She learned how to smile without joy, how to speak without revealing, how to watch without letting anyone catch her watching. But what changed everything were the self-defense sessions. Vincent suggested it one evening, his tone passing over it as though he were talking about the weather. "You should know how to protect yourself, in case I am not beside you." They began in the gym. Every early morning before Vincent left for work, he taught her how to punch, how to kick, how to break free if someone grabbed her. Simple lessons, practical, and yet each session turned into its own kind of torture. Because Vincent had to touch her. He had to stand behind her to adjust her posture, his hand resting at her hip to guide the movement. He had to press close to demonstrate how to escape an attacker from behind, his chest against her back, his hot breath against her ear. Every time, Olivia felt electricity race across her skin, and she knew Vincent felt it too. She knew it in the way he pulled away faster than he needed to, in the way his jaw tightened whenever their hands brushed and lingered a second too long. They never talked about it, not once, but it was there, taut and vivid, like a beast caged up, waiting for the door to open. The evenings in the library became their refuge. After dinner, instead of retreating to separate corners, they began sitting together by the fireplace. Vincent read his books, usually history or philosophy. Olivia read novels. Sometimes they traded books. Sometimes they argued over ideas. And Olivia began to realize Vincent was not only a cold-blooded mafia boss, he was intelligent, razor-sharp, and he carried a way of looking at life that made her question so many things she had once believed without hesitation. Their late-night conversations grew longer. They talked about everything, and nothing at all. About the books they loved, about music, and how Vincent, unexpectedly, liked classic jazz. about the dreams they once had before life pushed its way in. Olivia spoke about her childhood dream of becoming a teacher, about how it slowly died after her parents passed away, and she had to support herself. Vincent spoke about the brief time he studied economics at Columbia, before his father was shot, and he had to take over the family at the age of 22. "Sometimes I wonder who I would have become if I did not have to do this," he said one night, firelight reflecting in his thoughtful gray eyes. "Maybe a boring professor, with thick glasses and an old sweater." "You could not be boring even if you tried," Olivia said, and she startled herself by realizing she meant it completely. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, and there was something in his gaze that made her heart miss a beat. But as always, he said nothing. He only turned back to the fire, and that moment slipped away. But Olivia knew. She knew the boundary of their agreement was blurring with every passing day. She knew what she felt for Vincent was no longer something simple like gratitude or respect. And she knew, deep in her heart, that she was falling into something more dangerous than any mafia enemy. She was falling in love with her husband. The party at the Moretti family's house went on until close to midnight, and when they returned to the estate, both Olivia and Vincent were a little drunk. Champagne had been flowing all night, and Olivia had drunk more than usual to cope with the probing eyes and the roundabout questions from the other mafia wives. Did she really love Vincent? How had they met? Did she know who he was when they were dating? The rehearsed answers slipped from her mouth smooth as silk, but every lie left a bitter taste on her tongue. Instead of going to the bedroom, they went to the library, as if it were an unspoken habit neither of them had to name. Vincent poured whiskey for both of them, and they sat down on the sofa in front of the fireplace, instead of in two separate armchairs like they usually did. The distance between them was smaller than usual, and Olivia blamed the alcohol, even though she knew that, too, was a lie. "You handled yourself well tonight," Vincent said, staring into the fire. "They believe you. I used to be waitstaff, remember?" Olivia took a sip of whiskey and let it burn its way down her throat. "I know how to make people see what they want to see. Is that a skill you learned? Or were you born with it?" "Learned," she answered, her voice more bitter than she meant it to be. 3 years living with Derek taught me a lot." Silence. Vincent turned to look at her, and his sharp gray eyes suddenly became more focused. "Derek is your ex-husband." It was not a question. He knew. Of course he knew. He knew everything about her before she ever knew his name. But he had never asked, and she had never told. Not until tonight. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the way the firelight softened the hard edges of Vincent's face. Maybe it was the way 3 months of living together had broken down enough walls that whatever remained finally collapsed, too. 3 years of hell, Olivia began, her voice flat as water before a storm. "I met him when I was 22. He was charming, funny, and he made me feel loved for the first time after my parents died. I did not see the signs, or I did not want to see them." She paused, took another sip of whiskey. "The first time he hit me was 1 month after the wedding. I broke a glass. He slapped me and said it was because I needed to learn to be more careful, and I believed him. I believed it was my fault." Vincent said nothing. He only listened, his body utterly still, like a statue. But the air around him was changing, thickening with something dangerous. After that, everything escalated. A slap turned into a punch turned into a kick. Nights when I lay on the bathroom floor counting tiles, because it was the only way I could focus on something other than the pain. Olivia looked down at her left wrist, where a faint scar ran across her skin like a permanent reminder. "The only time I tried to run, he caught me before I could get out of the city. He used a broken bottle." She did not cry. She had cried every tear she had for these memories a long time ago. But when she looked up, she saw Vincent's hand gripping his whiskey glass so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Slowly, he set the glass down. Slowly, he turned toward her. And slowly, he took her wrist, gentle as if she were something precious, something that could shatter. His fingers brushed over the scar, tracing its curve with a tenderness that made Olivia want to cry. When she looked into his eyes, she did not see pity. She saw rage, cold, deep, and lethal. "Where is he now?" Vincent asked, his voice low and dangerous, like the growl of a wild animal. "I do not know, and I do not care." "I care." 2 simple words, but they carried the weight of a promise, a threat, a declaration that if Vincent ever found Derek, that man would no longer exist in this world. Olivia did not know whether she moved or Vincent moved, but suddenly they were very close. Close enough that she could count the tiny flecks of gold in his gray eyes. Close enough that she could feel his breath on her lips. Close enough that if she tilted her head just a little, only a little, their mouths would touch. Her heart hammered like a war drum. His eyes darkened, dropping to her lips, then lifting back to her eyes. 1 second, 2 seconds, an eternity. Then Vincent whispered, his voice rough and aching, "This is not real." He pulled back, stood up, stepped away as if she were fire, and he had just been burned. "Go to bed, Olivia. It is late." And he walked out, leaving her alone in the library with the dying fire, the thinning whiskey, and a heart breaking in a way she had never expected. A week passed after that night in the library, and Vincent built his walls again. He was polite, but distant. He checked on her each morning, but never held her gaze for too long. He sat with her in the library, but always kept a safe distance. Olivia should have been grateful. She should have felt relieved that he was keeping the boundary she had asked for from the beginning, but she did not feel relieved. She felt cold. That afternoon, Olivia was sitting in the garden with a book when her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen and saw an unfamiliar number. No name, just a string of digits she did not recognize. She should not have answered. Later, when she looked back, she would wish she had not answered. "Olivia." The voice turned her blood to ice, drunk, raspy, and soaked in malice. The voice that had haunted her nightmares for years. "Derek, long time no see, sweetheart." He laughed, and the sound was like fingernails dragged across a chalkboard. "Or should I call you Mrs. Castellano now?" Olivia could not breathe, could not move. She just sat there with the phone pressed to her ear, her body frozen as if he were standing right in front of her instead of somewhere on the other end of the line. "Not going to say anything, not happy to hear my voice," Derek went on, and his tone slid from mocking into something sharper, something threatening. "I have to say, I am impressed. My little waitress is the wife of a mafia boss now. Who would have guessed you had such a talent for climbing? What do you want?" Olivia finally found her voice again, even though it trembled, thin and weak. "Money," Derek said bluntly. $50,000. You are sleeping in a gold-plated bed now. That amount is nothing to you. I do not have money. Do not lie to me." His voice rumbled, and Olivia remembered that feeling. The way fear rose when she knew his anger was building, the way her body knew pain was coming before it arrived. "You think I do not know how you are living. I have been watching you. How many rooms does that estate have? 20, 30. And you are telling me you do not have money. That is not my money. Then ask your new husband for it. Or..." Derek paused, and Olivia could hear the poisonous smile in his voice. "I could tell him about you, about who you really are, about what you did in our marriage. How do you think he will react when he finds out what his wife used to be?" "I did not do anything." Olivia's voice cracked. "You know I did not do anything. I know what I want to know, and I will tell what I want to tell. You have 1 week, Olivia. 1 week to get the money ready. If you do not..." His laugh turned cold. "I will come pay you a visit in person. I am sure your new husband will be very happy to meet me." He hung up. Olivia sat there, the phone still pressed to her ear even though the line was dead, her body shaking in a way she could not control. The past she thought she had buried was digging itself free, crawling out of the grave, reaching for her, trying to drag her down with it. "Olivia." She jolted and turned around. Vincent was standing there, his face taut, his gray eyes sweeping over her, as if they could see through skin and bone. He had been watching her. He had seen it all. Who called? No one. She tried to speak, tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. Just a wrong number. Vincent stepped closer, and before she could react, he took the phone from her hand and looked at the number that had just called. Then he looked back at her, and Olivia knew she could not hide it anymore. "Your hand is shaking." Vincent's voice was low and dangerous. "And you just lied to me. For the first time in 3 months, you lied to me. So I am going to ask again. Who just called?" Silence. Then Olivia caved in. She told him everything. About Derek. About the threatening calls. About the money he demanded. About the threat to come for her. To tell Vincent lies he would invent. She told him about the debt of $45,000 Derek had forced her to sign when she had been too afraid to refuse. She told him about everything she had hidden, every fear she had tried to bury. When she finished, Vincent was silent. But it was not normal silence. It was the silence before a storm. The silence of a volcano right before it erupts. The air around him turned so cold Olivia felt it on her skin. "Where is he?" Vincent asked, and his voice was ice. No emotion, only deadly certainty. "Do not." Olivia stood, stepped closer, and put her hand on his arm. "Do not do anything. He is not worth you getting into trouble. He threatened my wife." Vincent spoke slowly, each word dropping like stone into water. "He dared to threaten my wife. And you are telling me not to do anything. Vincent, please. I am not promising. He said it. And Olivia knew that whatever happened next was already beyond her control. 3 days after Derek's call, everything exploded. Olivia was sitting in the library, trying to read, unable to focus on a single line, when hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. The door flew open, and Marco appeared, his face gone gray, a phone clutched in his hand. Behind him was Vincent, and the look on that man's face made Olivia's blood turn to ice. She had never seen Vincent like this. Not the cold anger, not the controlled danger. This was something far worse. Pure brutality, uncovered, unrestrained. What happened? Olivia stood up, and the book slipped from her hands and hit the floor without a sound. Vincent did not answer. He only handed her the phone, the screen still lit, a photograph open, and when Olivia looked, she felt the world collapse beneath her feet. Maya and Ethan. In the photo, they were sitting on filthy concrete in a dark warehouse, their hands tied behind their backs, their mouths sealed with tape. Maya's eyes were wide with terror, and Ethan, the small boy Olivia had taken a bullet to save, was crying without sound, tears streaming down his round cheeks. Beneath the picture was a message. Exchange. Your wife for them. Midnight. The old docks. No, Olivia whispered, the phone almost slipping from her trembling hand. No. 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 Volkov. Vincent said it, his voice flat as water before a storm. He took them from the safe house this morning, killed 2 guards. Olivia felt her knees give out. She sank onto the sofa, shaking hands, gripping her head, and guilt tore through her from the inside like claws. Because of me. Her voice cracked. They were taken because of me. If I had not stood up in the diner that night, if I had not thrown myself in front of the gunfire, if I had not— Do not talk nonsense. Vincent cut her off, his voice sharp with ice. This is not your fault. This is Volkov. This is a war he has wanted for a long time. Maya and Ethan are just tools. Tools to get me. Olivia looked up, her eyes burning, but her voice suddenly steadier. He wants me, so I will go. No, Vincent. I said no. Vincent turned to her, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. You think I will hand you over to Volkov? You think I will let him touch you? He will kill them, and he will kill you too if you go there. Vincent stepped closer, both hands on her shoulders, forcing her to look into his eyes. It is a trap, Olivia. Volkov does not intend a fair exchange. He will kill them whether you come or not, and then he will kill you in front of me, so I have to watch. So what are you going to do? Let them die. I am going to rescue them. Vincent released her and turned to Marco. Gather our team, all of them. I want 20 men at the docks within 2 hours. And contact the Morettis. Tell them this is the moment to repay their debt. Marco nodded and disappeared through the doorway. Olivia stood, her heart hammering with the decision that had already formed in her mind. I am coming with you. Vincent turned back as if she had grown a second head. No, I am coming with you. She repeated it, her voice steady. This is not a suggestion, Vincent. They were taken because of me. I am not hiding here while they suffer. You will only get in the way. I will stay in the car. I will not do anything stupid. But I am not staying behind. They stared at each other. Will against will, and Olivia refused to step back. She had stepped back too many times in her life. With Derek, with life, with everything, but not this time. Not when the life of a child was being threatened because of her. You are the most stubborn woman I have ever met. Vincent finally said it, his voice tired, but with something like respect buried underneath. And that is not a compliment. I know. Vincent exhaled and rubbed his forehead as if he had a headache. All right, you are coming, but you stay in the car with Tony. You do not get out no matter what happens. Not until I come for you myself. If things look wrong, Tony will drive away, and you will let him. Do you understand? I understand. Tell me what you understand. Stay in the car. Do not get out. Let Tony drive away if he has to. Olivia held his gaze. But you have to promise me one thing. What? Bring them back safe. Maya and Ethan. Promise me. Vincent was silent for a moment. Then he nodded. Slow. Certain. I promise. And in that moment, Olivia believed him. She believed he would do anything to keep that promise. She only hoped the price would not be too high. The night was black as ink, so thick, so dense, that Olivia felt as if the darkness itself were swallowing everything whole. The abandoned industrial district at the edge of the city stretched out like a graveyard for dreams that died too young. Rusting warehouses stood in silence like enormous skeletons, broken windows staring up at a sky with no moon, no stars, not a single light. Not a single sound, only the wind sliding through rotted iron frames, making a long, low moan, like the mourning of forgotten souls. Olivia sat inside the armored SUV, her hands gripping the edge of the seat so hard her knuckles went white. Tony sat beside her in the driver's seat, silent and tense, his eyes fixed on the largest warehouse at the end of the dirt road. That was where Vincent and his team had gone in 10 minutes earlier. 20 men dissolving into the darkness like ghosts. No sound, no trace. 10 minutes. 10 minutes that felt like 10 years. Are they all right? Olivia asked, her voice rough with strain. He knows what he is doing, Tony answered, but even he could not fully hide the worry in his tone. This is not the first time. Not the first time. Olivia wondered how many times Vincent had walked into darkness like this. How many times he had faced death and come out alive. How many times he had not come out. She closed her eyes and tried to breathe, but the air inside the car felt thick, close, hard to swallow. Through the tinted glass, she could see only blurred black shapes of the warehouses, the sealed metal doors, and the terrible silence spread over everything. Then gunfire ripped the night apart. Olivia flinched, her heart tightening as if a fist had closed around it. The shots kept coming, rapid, chaotic, echoing off concrete and metal. She heard shouting, glass breaking, something exploding. A flash of fire flared in a second-floor window, orange and red, and then vanished. Tony, she started, but he was already reaching out, holding her in place. Stay here, he said, stay here. The gunfire continued. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes of hell. Each second stretched out like eternity. Each shot like a blade driven into her heart. She did not know if Vincent was alive. Did not know if Maya and Ethan were alive. She knew nothing, except the gunshots, the darkness, and the fear choking her from the inside. Then silence. Sudden and complete, as if someone had pressed a mute button on the entire world. Olivia held her breath. Tony held his breath. They both stared at the warehouse door, waiting, praying, terrified. 1 minute passed. 2 minutes. 3 minutes of the most painful waiting Olivia had ever known. Then the door burst open. Vincent stepped out. And in the first instant, Olivia felt relief hit her like a tidal wave. He was alive. He was walking. He was carrying Ethan firmly with his uninjured right arm. The small boy was curled against his right side, his head slumped against Vincent's chest to avoid putting pressure on his wounded shoulder. Alive. 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 Behind Vincent, Marco appeared, one arm supporting Maya as she limped. Her face was streaked with tears, but her eyes were open, wide, alert. They lived. Both of them lived. Olivia nearly sobbed with relief, and then she saw it. Vincent's white shirt was turning red, not a small stain, a wide, spreading patch, bleeding from a through-and-through wound in his upper left arm, soaking his sleeve inside. He was clearly moving on pure adrenaline, his face tight as he forced his legs to remain steady. Blood. His blood. Vincent. She screamed his name, flung the car door open, and jumped out, breaking her promise to stay inside. Tony shouted after her, but she did not hear him. She ran. She ran toward the man who was beginning to sway, his legs no longer steady beneath him. She reached him just as his knees buckled. She caught him, or tried to, but he was too heavy, and she was too small, and they went down together. Even as he fell, Ethan stayed protected in the circle of Vincent's arms. Vincent, Vincent, look at me. She lifted his head, and his gray eyes, dulled by pain, found hers. You were supposed to stay in the car. His voice was weak, but the familiar note of reproach was still there. Shut up. She said it, tears sliding down her cheeks before she even realized she was crying. Shut up and let me save you. I promised, Vincent whispered, his eyes beginning to close. I promised I would bring them back safe. You did. You did, Vincent. Now stay with me. Stay with me. But the gray eyes closed completely. His body went heavy in her arms, and Olivia screamed his name into the ink-black night, begging whoever might be listening not to take him from her. The drive back to the estate was a blurred nightmare. The kind Olivia was not sure she would remember clearly later. She only remembered blood. Blood everywhere. On her hands. On her clothes. On her skin. She remembered Tony's voice shouting into the phone for the doctor. She remembered Marco driving like a madman through dark roads. And she remembered Vincent's hand holding hers, weak but unyielding, as if she were the only thread keeping him tied to this world. The estate's private doctor was waiting when they arrived. A middle-aged woman with a serious face and hands that did not shake. She pushed Olivia out of the room and closed the door, leaving her standing in the hallway with dried blood on her skin and fear crushing her chest, second by second. 2 hours. The longest 2 hours of Olivia's life. She did not sit down. She did not drink water, even when Maggie offered it. She only stood there, staring at the closed door, praying to whatever force might be listening. Finally, the door opened. The doctor stepped out, tired, but her face no longer as tight as it had been. The bullet went through the fleshy part of his shoulder, missing the bone and arteries. His physical conditioning and the adrenaline surge are the only reasons he didn't collapse the moment he picked up the boy. He lost a lot of blood, but he will recover. A few weeks of rest, and he will be fine. Olivia nearly collapsed with relief. She leaned against the wall, closed her eyes, and let the tears she had held back for 2 hours spill down her cheeks. He is alive. Vincent is alive. When everyone left, when the estate sank into the hush of late night, Olivia slipped into the bedroom where Vincent was lying. The room was dark. Only a small bedside lamp cast a faint shadow over the lines of his face. He was paler than usual, white bandages bright against his skin, but his chest rose and fell steadily with each breath. Alive. Truly alive. She pulled a chair to the side of the bed, sat down, and for the first time in hours, she could breathe. "You are an idiot," she spoke into the darkness, her voice breaking halfway through. Tears came again, and she did not bother wiping them away. "You are a reckless, stubborn idiot, and you almost died. You almost left me alone. You should not be here." Vincent's voice, rough and weak, startled her. She looked up and saw gray eyes open, watching her in the dark. "Where else would I go?" Her reply carried something she no longer wanted to hide. "You almost died." "I did not die. But you could have." Olivia took his hand, the uninjured one, and held it tight as if he might vanish if she let go. "I sat out in the hallway for 2 hours, not knowing if you were alive or dead. Do you know what that feels like?" "I know." Vincent's voice softened. "I felt that the night you took the bullet in the diner, the 3 days you were unconscious, I thought I was going to lose my mind." Silence, heavy, and full of everything neither of them had said. "Why did you do it?" Olivia asked, her voice a whisper. "Why did you go in to save them when you knew it was a trap? Why did you nearly give your life?" "Because I promised you." Vincent looked at her, and in the dim light, his eyes seemed brighter than ever. "And because I could not let you suffer. I could not let you live with guilt if they died." "Vincent, and because—" He cut her off, his voice rasping with something that sounded like fear braided with hope. "I do not know how to live if you look at me with disappointment. I can endure many things, Olivia, but not that." Her tears came faster, and Olivia could not stay silent any longer. "I do not want to end the engagement anymore." She said it, each word pulled up from deep in her chest. "I do not want this to be an agreement. I do not want to pretend anymore. I want—" She hesitated, but the intensity in those gray eyes would not let her stop. "I want this to be real." Silence stretched. 1 second, 2 seconds, an eternity. Then Vincent moved. With his uninjured arm, he reached for her, took the back of her neck, and pulled her down. Their mouths met. Not a brief, polite kiss like the one on their wedding day. Something deeper, more desperate, as if they had both been waiting too long, and could not hold themselves back any longer. His lips were warm and soft. They tasted of whiskey and blood, and Olivia thought she could die in this kiss, and she would not complain. When they broke apart, both of them were breathing hard, forehead to forehead, their breath mingling. "I love you," Vincent whispered, and the words trembled in the air like a confession and a promise. "Maybe since the night you stepped out and stopped me in the diner. Maybe since the moment you looked at me without fear even while your legs were shaking. I do not know exactly when. I only know that I love you, and I do not want to lose you. Not ever. I love you too." Olivia said it, and the words she had been afraid to admit even to herself, suddenly came with surprising ease. "I love you, Vincent Castellano, and I am not going anywhere." He kissed her again, and this time, Olivia knew it was no longer a performance. This was real. Finally, completely, absolutely real. 2 weeks after the night Vincent confessed his feelings. Volkov attacked. Not a calculated assault. Not a clever trap like the last one. This was pure madness. The raw frenzy of a man who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose. The failure at the warehouse had humiliated Volkov in front of the other families. News that Vincent had rescued the hostages and killed more than a dozen of Volkov's men spread through the underworld like wildfire. And Volkov, the old wolf who was used to ruling, could not endure that shame. The attack happened in the afternoon, while Olivia was on her way back from the hospital, where she had gone to visit Maya and Ethan as they recovered. A convoy of 3 SUVs was moving down the main boulevard when, Without warning, a truck burst out from a side street and slammed straight into the first vehicle. Then the gunfire started. From every direction. From the buildings lining the street. From other cars in traffic. A perfect ambush, in broad daylight. Olivia did not remember much of what came next. Only the deafening crack of gunshots, the shatter of glass, the screams. Tony shoved her down onto the floor of the vehicle, using his body as a shield while bullets tore through the windows. She remembered blood on her hands. Tony's blood, when he collapsed after the final shot. She remembered screaming, remembered trying to stop the bleeding, remembered begging him not to die. And she remembered Vincent's face when he arrived at the scene, when he saw her soaked in blood, sitting beside Tony's motionless body. She had never seen Vincent like that. Not his usual cold anger. This was something else. A boiling rage. Wild, nearly uncontained. His gray eyes went dark as a storm. And when he ordered his men to get Tony to the hospital and protect Olivia, his voice trembled with something more dangerous than anything she had ever heard. Tony survived. Barely. With 3 bullets in his body and a week in the emergency room. But he survived. When the news came, Vincent was sitting in his office, alone, in the dark, and Olivia knew the decision had been made. It has to end. He said it when she stepped inside, his voice flat and certain. No more negotiation, no more waiting. Volkov has to die. The next day, the estate turned into a command center. Bosses from allied families came to meet, the Morettis from Philadelphia, the Santinis, unexpectedly abandoning their neutral stance, and a few smaller families whose names Olivia did not know. They sat around the long table in the meeting room, and Vincent laid out the plan with the cold precision of a strategist. A full-scale assault on Volkov's stronghold. Tomorrow night, no survivors. Olivia was not allowed to attend the meeting, but she knew. She knew by the way Vincent looked at her when he left the bedroom that morning. She knew by the way he held her tighter than usual whenever they were together. She knew by the heavy silence that settled over the estate like ash before a volcano erupts. The night before the battle, they lay together in the bedroom, candlelight trembling on the walls, and silence wrapping around them like a blanket. Vincent lay on his back. Olivia curled beside him, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart like a war drum. "If I do not come back tomorrow," Vincent began, his voice low and serious. "Do not." Olivia cut him off, lifting her head to look at him. "Do not say those things. You have to hear it." He raised his hand and brushed her hair away from her face with a gentleness that did not match the dangerous man he was. "If I do not come back, Marco will take responsibility. Everything I have will belong to you. You can sell it, keep it, do whatever you want. There is enough money for you to live the rest of your life without working. You can start over, go far away, live a normal life that you deserve to have." "I do not want a normal life." Olivia said it, and she surprised herself by realizing she meant it. "I want you, only you." "Olivia, no." She sat up, looking down at him with eyes full of tears, her voice steady. "You do not get to say goodbye. You do not get to look at me like this is the last time. You will go, you will do what you have to do, and you will come back to me. That is an order." Vincent looked at her, and something in his gray eyes softened. "Since when did you start giving me orders?" "Since I became your wife." She leaned down, her lips hovering right above his. "And I am a very demanding wife. You are not allowed to die until I allow it. So do you allow it?" "Never." And she kissed him. Not a gentle kiss, not a soft one, a desperate kiss, full of fear and love and the refusal to lose each other. She kissed him like it was the last breath she needed to stay alive, and he kissed her back, his hand pulling her closer, closer still, until there was no space left between them. That night, they were together as if there were no tomorrow, because maybe, just maybe, there would not be. And when Olivia lay in Vincent's arms as dawn began to creep in, she whispered into the darkness words she prayed would not be her last. "Come back to me, Vincent. Promise me." "I promise," he whispered back, his lips brushing her forehead. "I promise." But they both knew that in their world, a promise was sometimes not enough to defeat death. Vincent left before dawn, when the sky was still the dark gray of night, as it finally bled away. Olivia could not sleep. She lay there pretending she was asleep when he got up, when he dressed in silence, when he paused beside the bed and looked at her for a long time. She felt the soft kiss on her forehead, felt the warmth of his breath against her skin, and she had to bite her lip so she would not break into tears. "I love you," he whispered it, the words as light as a passing breeze. Then he was gone, and Olivia opened her eyes and watched the door close, tears streaming down her cheeks in the silence of the empty room. The hours that followed were hell. Olivia sat in the living room. She did not eat. She did not drink. She only waited. Maggie sat beside her, quiet and patient, sometimes squeezing Olivia's hand with reassurance that did not need words. The remaining guards in the estate paced back and forth. The radio crackling with scattered fragments Olivia tried to piece together like shards of broken glass. Alpha team is in position. Beta team reports contact. Gunfire in the eastern sector. Each report struck her heart like a knife. She did not know where Vincent was inside that chaos. Did not know if he was alive or dead. She only waited, counting minutes, counting seconds, counting the painful beats of her own heart. 1 hour passed. 2 hours. 3 hours of waiting that ground her soul down into dust. The radio fell silent, and the silence was even more terrifying than gunfire. Olivia thought she was going to lose her mind, thought she would scream, or shatter something, or run outside to find him no matter what it cost. Then the phone rang. Olivia lunged for it, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it, and when she heard the voice on the other end, her knees nearly gave out. "It is done." Vincent said it, his voice exhausted, but alive and real. "I am coming home." Olivia could not speak. She only cried, sobs breaking free from deep in her chest, and she heard Vincent exhale on the other end of the line. "I love you." He said it again. "Wait for me." She waited. And when the black SUV rolled through the gates an hour later, when Vincent stepped out with dried blood on his shirt but standing steady on his own feet, Olivia ran to him and threw herself into his arms as if her life depended on that single moment. Volkov was dead, along with most of the men who had sworn loyalty to him. The empire he had built over decades collapsed in one night, and the threat that had haunted them for so long was finally over. 6 months later, life had changed completely. Maya and Ethan moved into a small house in the suburbs, where Ethan started school, and Maya began working at a bakery near their home. They were safe, they were happy, and every week, Olivia went to visit, to watch Ethan show off the new drawings he made at school. Tony recovered fully after months of physical therapy, and he returned to work with a new scar on his chest, and a loyalty even deeper than before. Derek disappeared. No one told Olivia what happened to him, and she did not ask. She only knew he would never threaten her, or anyone else, again, and that was enough. As for Olivia, she was no longer the invisible waitress in the late-night diner. She learned how to run the Castellano family's legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, and a few charitable projects she started herself. She had a voice. She had power, and most importantly, she had love. That morning, 6 months after the night Volkov died, Olivia sat in the garden with a cup of coffee in her hands. Golden sunlight filled the space. Birds sang in the branches. White roses bloomed around the fountain. Vincent stepped out from the house carrying 2 cups of coffee, and he sat down beside her. He handed her one. Then he reached for her and pulled her closer, so she could lean against his shoulder the way they did every morning. "Do you regret it?" he asked, his voice gentle and warm in the morning light. That night in the diner, stepping in between me and that table, Olivia thought about everything that had happened. The bullet, the days in a coma, the golden cage and the insane offer, the fake marriage and the real love, the nights of fear and the dawns of hope, the long, winding road that had carried her from a tired waitress in a diner at 2 a.m. to the woman sitting in this sun-drenched garden beside the man she loved. "Not for a single second," she answered, lifting her head to kiss him. "I would do it all again if I could. Every moment." Vincent smiled. A real smile, the kind she rarely saw, the kind that made his gray eyes brighten like a sky after a storm. "Me too." And they sat there in the golden light of a new morning, 2 people who had found each other in darkness and chaos, who had chosen to love each other anyway, who had built a life neither of them had ever believed they deserved to have. Because sometimes love comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes salvation comes from people we never thought would be the ones to save us. And sometimes all it takes is one moment of courage, one decision to stand up for someone else, to change an entire life. Olivia and Vincent's story reminds us that no one is truly invisible, that every act of kindness matters, and that even in the darkest circumstances, light can still find a way to slip in. It teaches us about the strength of courage, about the meaning of sacrifice, and about the miracle of love, when we dare to open our hearts and receive it. Thank you for following this story all the way to the very end. If you felt your heart tremble, if this story touched some part of your soul, please press the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you do not miss more moving stories every day. Please leave a like and share this video with the people you love so they can experience these feelings too. How did you feel about this story? Was there a moment that made you cry or smile? And in your real life, has anyone ever appeared and changed everything the way Olivia and Vincent found each other? Share with us in the comments below. We truly want to hear your stories, your feelings, from deep inside your hearts. I wish everyone watching this video good health, a joyful life, and a heart full of love every single day. May you always feel peace and happiness beside the people you love. Thank you so much. Goodbye, and I will see you again in the next video.